We're good.
Okay. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City of Plattsburgh City Council Infrastructure Committee, April 3rd, 2023 at 5:02 p.m. Let's see. We'll start with an approval of the minutes of the February 13th, 2023 Infrastructure Committee meeting. Moved by Mayor Rosenquist, seconded by Councilor Moore. All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Okay. Next is Public Works. Report 1, discussion of the infrastructure report.
Okay, we'll talking points for the this meeting. We'll run through a little quick. Number one is emergency water project out base. We're going to start hopefully what is the last day of it, which is the restoration. Probably the next week. What is it? And we have sidewalks, curb work, and lawn restoration too. Over on the east side of US Ave, there are still water services to be performed, and that will probably happen shortly thereafter. Since our last meeting, which has actually been 2 months, we skipped one. We did have one water separation that was over on this year. The last full day we had. So then, puddle patching that's ongoing every day. Fortunately, we are gaining the ready mix plant or the asphalt plant, assuming to be opening in the next 2-3 weeks, which time we'll go to hot mix, all that stuff. One thing we have been doing, sewer jetting and camera survey work. We just started up over in the Lake Country Village area, verifying the utilities, sewer utilities in those areas. Also, the general cleaning, which is something we actually about last year through the water emergency. Spring cleanup, our grounds crews are getting out now and started just raking in some of the parks. We did do City Hall last week. General maintenance on the shop, again cleaning up there, trying to transition our tools to it's kind of work. And then the final thing is streets. This week we think about today for the first time. We'll be cautious of them. Still get cold night temperatures, even during the day because of freeze up. So we'll continue to love it, try to get things cleaned up there. Moving on. UW capital activities, again, the emergency water project that, both the DPW and the contractors will be working hand in hand to finish up that project. That's what we're out there together. New York Road, the contract water line job. As far as closeout goes, closeout is complete. We have a handful of warranty items. Sidewalk needs to be replaced. It did last in there. We'll get that taken care of by the contractor before. The last two items I'll leave over to Andrew, but if you have any general questions before I turn Andrew over to you guys from our street updates. Any questions?
Just note that Mike and I took a drive around and talk about street paving this year. Come up with a plan in the next week or two, which will outline what roads typically, as we always do, put forth a list of roads that we will come in that we do plan on repaving this year. And again, just like every year, at the end of that schedule, we'll tack on a couple more as time and material costs go out.
Typically, what we typically have is to, and we may have took the time again Friday, we have in the capital plan, when I say plan, outlined a series of streets. We did a review of those streets, determined that we want to shift our focus to some that are obviously more dire. We will adjust accordingly. So we'll compare the prices on those and we'll have to adjust the capital plan. But again, we're using the same dollars allowed for this year.
Yeah, this is the time of year when we find out.
Yeah, stuff starts unraveling, and that's the problem. We also had to take into consideration, there are a couple of projects that I would like to focus on. That unfortunately you have to weigh the Margaret Street job and some of the upcoming major projects. We want to invest into a road that we're gonna beat up with heavy trucks. And traffic moving in and out of the city for that project, so we might have to just patch it up and get through a year or two before we decide to tackle this. You know, it might be a trouble road here more, and someone's gonna say, well, Jesus is in bad shape. Well, if we put a lot of money into it and then feed it on the trucks, doing Market Street John Ford, also to interfere with the actual process and stuff, because they need to be in and out of the city, so. What do you think of consideration? I'm gonna turn over to Andrew now, and he'll let you know how far I am. I'll start with Corday Street, nothing's really changed on that, that's still in the design phase with the engineer. Market Street, we have awarded to Reichenberg. We have on Wednesday, we have our pre-con meeting, so we'll find out a lot of information as far as our construction timeline. And how they're looking to phase the project. So that's really going to be the meat and potatoes. We'll know a lot more after Wednesday's meeting, especially a lot of the questions that people are asking. So we'll have answers to a lot of those questions after Wednesday. We have given them a start date of April 17th. So we probably in the next couple of days, we're going to be putting our variable message boards out in a couple of different spots in the city to let people know that construction is going to be starting on the 17th. So expect delays. We are scheduling a stakeholders meeting. Right now, I think it's tentatively April 12th in the evening for business owners, residences, property owners downtown to come to this meeting so we can explain to them what to expect during the construction, give them all of the places that they can contact if they have any issues, if they're looking for updates. Courtney just launched the new city's, not the website, but the interactive website for the public. So we're gonna have a sole page on that just for the Market Street where people can go. They'll have weekly updates on that website of what to expect. So we're dealing with the public portion of it right now to let everybody know what's going on, and then here in the next couple of weeks, construction will start up probably with cutting trees down and starting the groundbreaking. Any questions?
And on that, you know, we met with Courtney and Kelly today from CNS to outline a communication strategy as well as an update strategy for this project. I am downtown every day. I take a walk around, I talk to people, business owner, residents. There is a frustration about, well, why doesn't the city know when we're going to start? It's a complex project and a lot of planning has to go into this before we can just start cutting the street open. So before we know what that timeline looks like, as Andrew noted, those meetings have happened. The anticipated start date is the 17th of April. But at the same time, we will get messaging out, we will get social out, we'll get traditional media out, just to make sure that people are aware. As also as Andrew said, those variable message boards will be posted throughout downtown, as well as moved where needed to also provide additional messaging. I really just ask that, you know, we're all in this together. Nobody's out there by themselves, and we understand the pain this is going to cause. And so what we said from the beginning, that this is one of the biggest projects that the city of Plattsburgh is going to see in quite some time and have seen in quite some time. Right? So we're all in this together, and we'll make sure that every bit of information that we have, you have, this council and the public, and then every mechanism for communication is also made available to residents and business owners, so that any issues that do pop up, we're made aware and we can correct them immediately.
And then we also have messaging that's going to go out to all of the departments in the city, so that if somebody calls here at City Hall or for some reason calls MLB, they have the information to say, okay, you need to contact Andrew at DPW or CNS, or you can go to the website here to get information. So we want to make sure that everybody's getting the same message. Any emails that are sent out to the website, Kelly from CNS, that goes right to her cell phone. So that's real time. So unless she's in the middle of a meeting or something, she should be able to get right back to somebody with an answer or something. So we're looking to make sure that the public stays very
engaged in notifying this project.
And and I asked council as well, is to please make a very concerted effort to stay involved with the project. Even if that means just checking that website once a day or every other day. Because again, we're trying to centralize this information so that the information is accurate. It's immediately available, and you know, as rumors start to swirl, people can come back to get the actual information. About this project.
And Courtney gave admin privileges to both myself and Kelly for the new website. So the two of us will be the ones that are updating the information on that. So that's coming right from either the design engineer or myself. So we don't have other people who are putting the information in. So anything that goes on that website is going to be, you know, firsthand information.
Does it have the ability to make QR codes on there?
Yes.
Yeah. Those things are pretty handy, I'm discovering.
Yeah, they are. And that goes with public meetings as well. As Andrew said, there's a public stakeholders meeting. It's open to the public, but it is encouraged that council attends as well.
Yeah, so we could absolutely do a QR code. And then like we did with our surveys, we could ask the businesses to hang in the window. Basically any questions or concerns about Market Street, they can send them the QR code as it takes them right for the new Citizen Lab website.
That would be helpful.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions?
Cornelia Street update? What are you gonna tell us about Cornelia Street?
Yeah, so Cornelia Street's still with the engineer, so they're reviewing the, so how this one worked was we had hired an engineering firm to do the base map survey and the traffic study. Because this is going to be going through a federal and state grant, we had to choose an engineer off of our LDSA list, which is a pre-approved list through the state. The company that we had hired to do the original survey was Chazen. They are not on our LDSA list, so we had to go back and choose a separate company to do the design. So currently that company is doing the review of the survey and the review of the traffic study. So once that review is complete, then we'll sit down with them and go over our ideas as far as what we're looking to do out there. I met them on site when they initially gave us the proposal, so they kind of know what we're looking to do, but we'll nail down finer details at our next meeting.
What might be the time frame on that?
So this is going to be a little bit longer than the Margaret Street project. So when you have DOT involved in the project, anything you do has to get reviewed by DOT. So any preliminary plans goes to DOT for review. DOT will send back comments, you make those changes. DOT's gonna have additional paperwork that we're gonna have to fill out. There's gonna be stuff to do with the grants. There's gonna be women, minority-owned business opportunities for the construction, so we have to make sure all of our paperwork is set for all of that. So there's a lot more paperwork involved in a project like that, where you're getting funding from federal and state, than there is, say, like Margaret Street, where it's being paid for by the municipality. So this is probably looking at 2025, 2026 construction for this project, yeah.
And also, this is also paid for primarily through DOT and some federal funding. I think the last time we applied a much sub grant on top of what our federal obligation was, and it brought the city's out-of-pocket obligation for that redesign to roughly around $29,000 out of pocket for the city of Plattsburgh for a major project like this. And really, we're alone in a design phase right now. This is a DOT project. There's not much the city can do in terms of define the design. This is going to be solely based on DOT standards and their approach. So it's a great benefit to the city to get out of our hands in terms of our specific involvement.
Yeah, so the state grant initially was an 80-20, so they pay 80%, we pay 20%. The federal government came through with the Marcia Shelley grant, which was the same as our PSAP. For the PSAP, it made it so we had nothing, so it was basically 100% between the state and federal. For this, it brought our municipal match down to almost 6% for the design phase. So it was a pretty significant reduction.
Andrew, the stakeholders meeting was what? April.
April
Well, Wednesday.
Okay,
Yeah.
Well, and we'll get that invite again when it comes to public
Yeah.
meetings like that, we'll make sure that everybody's in.
Yeah, the council will be invited to that, and then,
that's my next thing.
yeah, we had-
I'm excited, I'm getting excited about this. So,
they had initially, when we did our public engagement portion, we did the same thing. So before we kicked off our public engagement to the entire public, we held a meeting just for what we call the stakeholders, which
Right.
is anybody who's in that vicinity. So we have an entire list of people who live there, with their addresses and email information if they chose to give it to us. So we're gonna do a mass mailing to all those people again here this week to let them know that we're gonna be having this meeting, on April 12th.
perfect.
Almost like we have the library.
Yes, it'll be in the library. Yep.
Final thing you have on your list is DPW staffing.
Yeah, I'll let Michael speak on that one.
Do you want to touch on Broad Street Road?
Yeah, if you want, we can touch on Broad Street project. So the mayor and myself and Alicia have been working on looking at Broad Street. So obviously, everybody heard about the student that was hit a couple weeks ago, but in the evening, trying to cross Broad Street. There's several areas on Broad Street where there's a lot of these issues. I missed the Clinton County Traffic Safety Committee meeting last month, but I was told that there was a very large discussion about that issue. We had taken a couple crosswalks out at their request a couple of years back. We've actually started to look at this as possibly doing a road diet. And for anybody who doesn't know what a road diet is, it's basically leaving the road surface as it is, but eliminating some lanes so we don't have so many lanes. So we're looking at the possibility of eliminating it from a 4-lane highway to doing a 2-lane highway, putting bike lanes in on the side for bicycle safety. And then it also, because you only have 2 lanes, it's a lot safer for the pedestrians to cross the road because they're not trying to jump across 4 lanes of traffic. That can include eliminating some crosswalks in certain places where they're not controlled by signalization. They could be adding some crosswalks. They could be putting in flashing crosswalk lights, the push button solar lights. So, people push them, it turns that into a controlled crosswalk without actually having a signal light there. So there's a lot of things that we're looking at. So we're looking at doing a traffic study of the Broad Street corridor, and we're working with SUNY because this was looked at a few years ago. SUNY was willing to put up some funding at that time. For some reason, this was right as I started working for the city in 2016. For some reason that fell through and the city never ended up moving forward with it. So we contacted SUNY again to see if it'd be something they'd like to partner up with us on. So that's something that we're going to be moving forward on because there's a lot of issues with pedestrian safety on that 4 lanes.
Yeah, and before any changes are decided upon and determined, the first step is to do a traffic count, and that's where you'll see a resolution sometime in the near future on funding that traffic count. That's where we start, and then we make a determination on what is the most logical step forward. Before putting the cart before the horse here. We all see the concern about Broad Street, how fast that traffic is, and then also because it's a residential plus school, middle school as well as SUNY, it becomes that mix of pedestrian plus residential plus 4 lanes of traffic becomes problematic as we saw recently. But again, we go back to counting cars. Really, that's what we got to do first. We got to count cars. And then we gotta go back and say what makes the most sense, what should the traffic pattern be? And again, ideally, yes, we would look at a road diet with some biking, more than mobile infrastructure improvements. But first we go back to the traffic count.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So the staffing you see there is really just backfill. We had 2 backfills for vacancies that became open, and then we still actually have an open posting for labor and maintenance position. So that's what we have currently. We are advertising for labor posting closed. We will be posting for another maintenance one, and then seasonal temporary.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions about the infrastructure report? Not, we'll move on to item 2.2, which is draft resolution for the approval of a street closure, which is Green Street for Canadian Pacific Railway.
Motion.
Motion from Councilor Callan and seconded by Mayor Rosenquist. Discussion.
What are we doing there? Just stand.
So this request by today's kind of request, actually, we don't have a whole lot of savings. Canadian Pacific, this is the crossing that they want to do.
Have it on sound.
This is a rail crossing that they had scheduled for last fall to get done. The approaches and also the rail in that section is, the rail, I guess is a jump in, and it was bumpy, and also the approaches. What you'll see happen is over a 2-day period, they're gonna go ahead, pull the asphalt back, pull the tie, the rail and tie, reset new rail, and then put the new blocks in. Should be pretty quick when it's a short crossing. It's not like the big one we did on Miller Street. But it does need to be done. And then it's sometime, and I can't give that an answer, but I might give you a heads up. Over on Riley, we're also doing that one by Mays, and that should happen this season. When I can't tell you, most of the time they're running all over the place. Lucky to give me this much notice on it. So we did talk with the guys at the water pollution control plant. They reached out to the haulers. We're gonna have to have a detour down Dock Street to get the trucks in. But again, they're usually pretty efficient. Obviously, Amtrak's running, so we don't want to get back up and going quickly.
Are we meeting on Wednesday this week?
Thursday,
The city council,
it's Thursday,
we're meeting on Thursday.
yes.
This work's going to begin before the city council.
That is correct. Yeah, the mayor was notified of it. Like I said, I was notified. As soon as I knew about it, I let the mayor know about it. And again, it's one of those things where that kind of closure, we have no control over, unfortunately.
I don't think anybody's going to object.
Yeah, they did the same thing to me on, I believe it's Dock Street. I had a real short window with, and I don't know why I'm the contact, I guess it's because I'm in the Rolodex. Call me.
Any other questions on resolution 2.2? All in favor of moving to the regular agenda Thursday night? You can stay up here, Michael.
No, that's John.
No, capital equipment purchase.
Oh, capital equipment.
Aye.
All in favor? Okay, any opposed? Okay, thank you. All right, item 2.3 is to authorize revising our capital expenditure plan for a 2022 equipment purchase. So any discussion, motion, Mayor Rosenquist, seconded by Councilman Town. Discussion.
I believe we have a couple pickup trucks on there. We have utility vehicle, field conditioner.
That was pulled off of that was pulled off of this one. One of the things that we found was because last year, I think it was last budget cycle, we moved parks and beautification and park maintenance out of rec complex and into the management of it into DPW. But those funds still come out of rec complex. That does not impact this resolution, but we will shortly see a resolution for a capital expenditure to come out of rec complex for equipment for parks.
Those maintenance trucks, those pickup trucks,
They be pickup trucks, 3/4 and ton and quarter.
those are just to try it out.
But then
We're trying some electric trucks out.
electric,
I'm not
actually,
sold.
electric trucks are already ordered, but when they come, that's actually, here's a problem, fundamental problem with light vehicles in general. We actually can't even get pricing right now. I've been requesting budgetary pricing for them. I have an idea what they're worth. We had to create a capital project so I can just bring to you guys bid prices for trucks. The vendors are not putting out those prices right now, whether it be national auto sales or some of the fleet sales. It's a good possibility that I'm gonna be able to get a purchase order written in this calendar year for those. The electric trucks, a purchase order was written, but I'm not gonna hold my breath anytime soon for those. Ironically, things that we have received, you know, we took delivery of 3 wheel loaders last week. They can produce a wheel loader fast. They can do bigger stuff. But that's what this is for. Again, I don't foresee us having these vehicles. Like I said, you can go to a car lot nowadays, it's pretty thin pickings and they're not. And they shut down the order, they do it with notice. And the order banks are open. You request a quote, but they aren't even sending quotes back on. So. That's where we're at.
They're only giving you like a 1 to 2 week window that you have to place your order into, which is kind of a pain.
We're run short of vehicles, we'd have to buy a gas powered.
Well, these are gas powered vehicles. These are not light duty trucks. They don't make we can't put.
Oh, these aren't pickups.
No, well, they're pickups, but they're 350, they're 250, they're 3,500, they're 3/4 up to 1.25 trucks.
Using this plow, right?
Yes, yeah, they're maintenance trucks, yeah. So they have
But those small plows that you use,
those small plow, yeah, it'd be like a F-550 or a Chevy 5500, something like that neighborhood.
okay, thanks.
Okay.
I ask that we save comments from the public until the public comment section of the meeting, please. Thank you. And thank you, Michael. We appreciate that information. All in favor of moving this item to the regular agenda indicate by saying aye.
And
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Next is the environmental section of our meeting, and item 3.1. Mr. Ruff is to authorize Waterhouse Street sewer separation evaluation. All in favor, motion from Mayor Rosenquist, a second. Second by Councilor Towns. Now we may discuss this item. Thank you.
So the sewers in the vicinity of Waterhouse Street is just one. So during dry weather, it carries sanitary flow, during wet weather, it carries sanitary plus storm flow. There's a combined sewer overflow at the end of the street, which during heavy rainstorms will discharge some of the excess flow. But a lot of that's also conveyed to the city wastewater plant for treatment. We're under a lot of pressure to improve our CSOs. In particular, to reduce the number of overflows and to provide a capacity to add new development flows in place of what's now combined flow. So the plan is to evaluate the Waterhouse Street area to see how best to separate the sewers. So we have a storm sewer and a separate sanitary sewer. And also to run modeling to see how much benefit we'll get from that when it comes to the combined sewer overflows. So it's basically a feasibility study that's going to involve a bunch of surveying, computer modeling, and then ultimately an analysis and a recommendation as far as how we should proceed.
I have a lot of questions about this. Why Waterhouse?
It looks like the easiest area to separate sewers. We've got combined sewers in other parts of the city that are kind of islands of themselves. So even if separate sewers were put in there, there's really no place to convey that stormwater separately easily. Waterhouse Street has a pipe going right to the river now. It looks like it's pretty easy to connect, to separate that out and run a separate discharge, or to connect some of that into the existing sewer along South Catherine Street.
Now, when you say we're under pressure, I assume that means from some state agency.
Federal and state, EPA has got regulations, DEC's got regulations. There's also some local pressure too, because it's impacting our ability to allow development within the city and development outside the city in the town under an intermunicipal agreement. It's impacting that ability to proceed till we get this all straightened out with DEC. So this is kind of a looking forward component for how we can improve this situation and relieve some of these pressures that we've got.
Or are there plans to do development in that part of the city? Do we have plans underway to build additional housing or other?
Within that specific catchment area, I don't know. But there's routinely new projects coming in. What we've asked the state to allow us to do is to not limit the benefits that we get by doing these separation projects to the specific catchment area that the project occurs in. There's a number of CSO discharges along the river. They're so close together, we've asked the state to treat them as one basic discharge. So if we were to do an improvement in, say, Waterhouse Street here, that could help us allow development in some other catchment area in the southern part of the city or the west and the north.
Okay, so your counterparts at DPW tore up Parkwell Street and St. John and LeBlanc Lane this past summer and resurfaced all. How is this going to impact the work that they do?
We don't know at this point. That would sure be part of the evaluation.
Okay, would it require tearing up those streets if we use any of those, I think, 3 options that were mentioned in the correspondence we received?
Don't know at this point.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's just, that work was done and the people who live there are very grateful to have those nice smooth streets. And there's even a new sidewalk on St. John Street. So it would be kind of sad to tear all that up. But
Yeah, and that would certainly be one of the.
it's necessary.
Yes, so we don't know at this point. It's as simple as putting in catch basins along Waterhouse Street and run a pipe out without affecting those streets and. We think that would be a practical way of doing it, but at this point, I can't say.
Okay. And what would be the timeline for this project?
The evaluation timeline is 5 months. Then we'll know what the options are. We need to make a decision about which, if any, we wanted to proceed with. Then it would be design and construction. So we're not looking at doing any kind of construction, I would think, until next year sometime.
Okay. Thank you, General. So, any other discussion about this item? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye. Opposed? None? All right. This will move to the regular agenda. All right. Draft resolution 3.2, authorize Mead Reservoir quarterly inspection services. May I have a motion? Mayor Rosenquist, second by Councilor Talon. Discussion.
Hey, this is something we do pretty much every year for the last probably 7 or 8 years at least. Mead Dam and Spillway have no concerns out there. As part of making sure that there aren't any safety issues while we're figuring out what the long-term plan is. The state's required us to do quarterly inspections by a certified engineer. They come in, they evaluate everything, see if any of the spillway slabs have changed, and they make recommendations as far as how they feel the condition of the dam is and whether or not there's any interim measures that should be taken between now and the time when we know for sure what the final disposition of this dam is going to be.
Since this is a thing that repeats every year, I assume you have this in your budget.
It's proposed to take the funds out of capital budget. That's where they be coming because it's part of the Mead Dam long-term plan. What are we gonna do with this
Right.
dam project? Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I just had one comment on this. I had an informational meeting on federal infrastructure money. I guess it's looking like they're gonna have one more year where they do have funds available. And that's gonna be administered by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. It's gonna be dispersed through the state. We don't have a lot of actual grant money left. You know, most of it's, or I should say, a lot of it is, at this point, is just loans and, you know, low interest loans and revolving funds, but, you know, I've heard in the past, and I know we have potential to have to do some work on that dam sometime. I don't feel it would be a bad idea to try to scoop up some of that money if it's available. I'm sure you're on top of it, but the way they were talking is, they're pretty sure they got money for projects next year that you would apply for this year. Next year, no more promises, you know, money is gonna end up disappearing, so just want to put that on the radar, that, you know, there is, and they did specifically mention dams. That's what caught my ear.
Yeah, until recently, dams have been categorically excluded from grants and financing. I think 2 years ago, they started providing some funding for studying high hazard dams that might have issues. The types of studies they were funding is work that we've already done in years past to get to the point where we're at. But a lot of times when they start funding studies, then there's construction grant money coming later on, but I haven't heard anything about that being funded yet, actual construction.
Yeah, they mentioned dam repair. It
Okay.
was in there, that's why, like I said, it caught my ear.
Alright.
So,
Any other discussion? All in favor of moving this item to the regular agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Next item is 3.3. Authorizing a travel request for our environmental manager to attend the NYWEA conference.
In the spring meeting, yes, it's actually in conjunction with, this is the New York Water Environment Association. They're actually doing a joint meeting with the New England Water Environment Association, so it's a bigger, more powerful meeting. Sometimes they go to this one, sometimes they don't, but there's a number of items in this conference that I think specifically apply to the city. First big one is something we were just talking about, Jeff. It's state revolving loan fund money and the bipartisan infrastructure law funding programs, how they're going to be administered, and a lot of the nuances that we need to comply with in order to qualify for money. There's other sessions on things that are on our radar screen. In particular, there's a lot on the organics management work that we're doing now, which we'll be doing in the long run with our sewage biosolids, with our food waste, with our paper waste and all that. So there's sessions on things like biochar, gasification, heat drying, all the stuff that we're taking a look at now. So that's very timely. Another big item are the PFAS that are a big problem now, not just in drinking water, but in other parts of the environment. One of our long-term concerns is if we stay with a biosolids treatment process that results in a fertilizer or some kind of product that's going to be landfilled, what are the PFA implications of that? Industrial pre-treatment program presentations, in particular by the gentleman who just did our industrial pre-treatment program inspection. So we'll be learning a lot more about what he's thinking, but also the ability to show him that we're serious about this program and make sure that we're in as good graces. Then there's more funding presentations and thermal dryers and stuff like that. So.
Any other discussion for Mr. Ruff on this side?
I don't think we did it first or second.
Did we not?
No.
Well, I think we should. Hey, roads and cliffs. Councilor Moore?
I have to say that all over.
Yes. No, you don't have to. Thank you very much. Any other discussion on this item? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Item 4.1, which is draft resolution to authorize the use of parklets for the 2023 outdoor dining season. Moved by Councilor Towner, seconded by Councilor Kelly. Discussion.
Yeah, so typically this would have come earlier to council. This was our oversight in the interpretation in the code. We flattened the parklet and the outdoor dining into one. Typically, this would have come to council to set the rate, and that's essentially what this does. We've still been taking in permit applications. We've been reaching out to former permittees, folks who have had permits in the past, saying, hey, get your permits in, get your applications in, let's get those permit applications approved and out to you. We did have no anticipation that the rate would change for the outdoor dining. Rate is the same as it has been the last few years. The only caveat is, I think it's like the fourth, be it further resolved, is that there's a mechanism for reimbursing some of the permit fee back to the back to the restaurants if they need to pull their seating, their outdoor seating. I think that's just a fair approach. But again, as we get through the Margaret Street project, we still want people to take advantage of outdoor seating if it's in their willingness to do so. So this sets forth that mechanism for outdoor dining as well as that reimbursement mechanism.
So if, for example, a restaurant may be impacted by the construction.
Yep.
That we might end up giving money.
Correct. If they say, you know, we're gonna pull all of our outdoor seating, we're gonna pull all of our outdoor seating, but they paid for the entire season, we reimburse them the time between, when they paid and the time that they pull their seating back. In addition to this, though, we have reached out to, either we have or we're planning on, myself, Alicia, and Courtney will reach out to these business owners who do outdoor seating and say, look, if you're not comfortable with putting your outdoor seating on Margaret Street, where can we work it out where you would be comfortable? Some folks might use an adjacent parking lot, some folks might use the backside of their building. We're trying to find mechanisms for them to still have that outdoor seating option, which may not be directly on Margaret Street, but would still satisfy the need for their business. And I also want to say it's not just Margaret Street, but it's also Brinkerhoff and Court Street. So those folks. Yep, so those folks will fall into this. Fall into that mechanism as well.
So I just want to be sure what we're doing, like, as far as the placing of the Jersey barriers and removing of them, like say halfway through the season or whatever. How are we gonna handle that? Like say halfway through the year, one of these places, they're gonna get torn up, they're gonna have to move that stuff out of there, or they're gonna pay full.
It depends on who they hire. We hadn't really talked about the payment structure. If they're gonna use the city, they can use anybody to move their barriers.
I think they mostly use us though.
Typically, they mostly use us. I think there's one or two folks. I know that, I think there's one or two folks that don't use us. You know,
I don't have any big opinion on that. I just
Yeah.
want to think that we should, have something.
I think a lot's gonna hinge on the construction schedule. I think that, once we talk to the contractor on Wednesday, make them aware, we know the locations obviously on Margaret Street that have outside dining, the parklets and what have you. And we'll need to find out when they're gonna be in front of those businesses, and if it's worth their while putting the parklets out this calendar year. Or do we, like the mayor said, do we try to find a place that's, behind them on Derby Street, they have access there or across the street, what have you, but we want to be as flexible as possible. If we put them out there and, say something on the north end of Margaret Street can go for a month or two, and they get some seating in there, great. We'll just have to, work with the contractor and coordinate, when they say that we need to get in here and want to, get with the business owner and get the barriers pulled. But I think the mayor is trying to be as flexible as possible and give them as much time as possible. It'll be their call, like the mayor said, on whether they even want to go down that road.
Yeah, because even if construction isn't happening in their specific area, you're still gonna get loaders that are coming from the laydown area, driving through there, kicking up dust while people are trying to eat. So honestly, it's gonna be up to the business owners.
And that's one of the reasons why, one, is we want to have some reimbursement mechanism. I'm not hard and fast on, this is the expense that you're gonna pay as a business owner if we have to come back and forth and move your barriers. I think we're pretty flexible that we can say, look, we understand this is a big inconvenience. We can waive that fee if needed, but we do want the business owners to go into the season eyes wide open. When it comes to the schedule and the impact that it's gonna have on outdoor dining. Separate from this, we also understand that, it might have an impact on people being able to drive right up to their business, park right in front, get out, and go inside. We understand that too. That's why we're trying to mitigate some of those concerns with signage, communication of the business, and the city will do everything that we can to make sure that patrons can access the business. But we also need the business owners to also be actively engaged in this process to get information out to their patrons and to their customers as well. So it's flexible, but we just wanted a mechanism to be able to reimburse folks if they do choose that option of getting outdoor dining, because again, like Andrew said, we might not get to Court Street until later on in the season, and it might not impact the businesses on Court Street or Brincroft or the northern half of Margaret Street, but we want people to be able to make that decision, knowing that we'll still reimburse them if plans change or they're not comfortable moving on.
And one thing that I didn't mention, I know Courtney's been working with the Clinton County Chamber of Commerce. I believe she's invited them to our stakeholders meeting. And they're gonna come and let the business owners know about either grant opportunities or other programs that they can apply for that might help offset the cost or the revenue that they're gonna lose from losing that. They'll have some ideas, whether it's something that they did during COVID or how everything worked. They're gonna hopefully they're gonna show up and have some ideas for the business owners to help mitigate any losses that they would have by not having their outdoor dining.
Very good.
Any other discussion on this side? All in favor of moving to the regular agenda, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, none. Okay, let's see, the next item on the agenda is new business. Anybody have any new business to bring before the meeting?
Yeah, I just want to welcome back to the Amtrak train. People have an option to either go down to New York or Saratoga or Albany or go up to Montreal. So yeah, Amtrak's back. Yay.
Thank you. Any other new business? Okay, now is the time for public comment. Any public comment?
With the downtown businesses and having that restaurant and still having to pay for it for this year, can the city actually give that to them for no cost? And then raise the fee next year to compensate for it, because you're only getting a half the revenue if those business owners use it. So I think it'd be good for the business owners not to have any cost on it for this year. And it would set a better tone with them on the construction project that it must have done. And it's just, that's to be able to hire next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. With that, I will take a motion for a discussion. Mayor Rosenquist, seconded by Council Moore. All in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.